Welcome back. In New York City, countless children and families face challenges overshadowing even the simplest joys of childhood and parenting. Yet, there is a mission driven organization working tirelessly, ensuring no child feels forgotten and no parent loses hope. Joining us to tell us more is the Executive Director of Projects with Care, Jeff Kozel. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, can you share a little bit more behind the founding of Projects with Care?
Sure. So we were founded in 1991 as Stockings with Care. That was our first initial program, which is our holiday program. And it was founded by Rosalie Joseph and Tom Fontana. And Rosalie was a casting director, and she went into one of these parties where um, everyone got a gift that was like, let's say, for a 6-year-old, and it wasn't personal. And the kids were happy to receive it, but she felt like we could do something more where it was personalized. So it evolved into Stockings with Care, which offers each of the children that we serve 3 wishes from their wish list for Christmas, and then our Santas go out and purchase those 3 gifts, and they're given back to the parent or guardian for them to be able to celebrate the holiday as a family with dignity, and we're completely anonymous.
Now, what core belief or principle drives the work of Projects with Care?
That every child and family in our community deserves to feel seen and heard, and that they're special and they matter.
Now, you've helped and assisted over 70,000 children, and they've definitely been impacted by your initiatives. Can you describe some of the most memorable stories or moments that have stood out to you?
I recently did a couple of interviews for a video that we did at our fundraiser, and we met with some of the parents. One of the things that really stood out to me is that, and this happens to be in the Bronx, this shelter that we deal with, and she said that we take the pain out of the mother of not being able to provide for their child, and that it was special and that she wanted it to keep going for other families because she had no idea what she was going to do for the holidays and how her kids would feel if they had just lost their father. That she felt she had nothing. She couldn't do a tree, a decoration, a gift, nothing. And that this really saved her as a family to feel like the kids still had something.
That,
So,
yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I kind of even want to expand more on your efforts to ensure that you're, reaching as many families as possible. I understand that you collaborate with NYC social service agencies. Can you tell me a little bit more about that effort?
sure. So, we make sure that we want to make sure that we know that who our donors are donating to, that we know where it's going. Years ago, we've been working with Scan Harbor in the Bronx for 22 years, I think it is. So we've got long-term relationships with all of our agencies. This year, we have taken on the domestic violence shelters as well. As we're expanding, we're trying to do more for the residential shelters. And those kids are some of the neediest in the system because they leave in the middle of the night with nothing. And they literally have just the clothes on their backs. So we try to help those parents and families as they, navigate the back to school, the holiday, and then of course our new program, Project Welcome Home.
Now, I definitely want to continue talking a little bit more about, just this holiday tradition. It's been happening for 33 years, which is truly amazing. What has been
Yes,
the key to sustaining and growing this tradition?
I think it is how the Santas feel connected to the children. It's not random. You get the child's wish list, you understand their name, their age, their color, what they're asking for, and it makes it very special because you know that this is the only holiday these children are having, and that you, as a neighbor, can do something for these people who are living in our community. So I think that's part of what sustains it. We have people return year after year. They go, they do it. They're a Santa one time. Now they bring their company in, and so it's very exciting. The growth has been really exciting in the last couple of years.
Now, I understand that you mentioned that it is not random. So, with that, what steps are taken to make sure that, a child's specific holiday wishes are fulfilled?
So we start in September, back to school time, and through the agencies we work with, then the social workers get in touch with the families who get in touch with the children. They fill out their 3 wishes. It comes back to us. It gets a little bit cleaned up to make sure no one's asking for a violent game or something like that. We try to keep it into perspective, cost wise also. You can't get a Mercedes if you're 16. Um, and then every child that wants a bike, we believe that that represents freedom and independence. So we purchase the bikes for them because they're too hard to order in the city and get them and transport them. So we have a whole team of people who build bikes, that we purchase for every child that gets a bike. And that is their only gift. They get a bike, a helmet, and a lock. Um, but we then have all of our Santas sign up. It's happening today as we speak, or the last of them for this year. They are assigned a child randomly, and so that's the child that they get. And sometimes it's one or two, or sometimes there's some requests where people will say, oh, I have a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old. I'd like children that age so that we can shop together and, make it a family thing. Um, but it's really just making sure that this child, what they're asking for is what ends up getting back to them. So when we have a whole donated space, 24,000 square feet, we have hundreds of volunteers that come, and we make sure that everything is there. Every child that we say we're covering gets everything that they've asked for. And we make sure that with the siblings, that everything is equal, because no parent wants to say, oh, this kid got 8 presents and this one only got 2. So there's a whole system in place of how this all works. Then they go back through to the agency, and then the social worker, and then to the family. And we're completely anonymous in all of this.
Now, I understand you briefly mentioned 16, so I'm curious to know what are the ages that, if somebody wants to make a difference, what are the age group for the children involved?
So we handle from newborn through 18 years old and still in school. So once they're out of school, they kind of leave what we do, even if they're still part of the family, unfortunately. But we're school age kids and below.
Now, why is it important for children to feel like they belong, especially in terms of having, maybe that present that they've been thinking about all year, and even expanding to beyond just the holidays, but for school clothing? Why is it important that they feel that they belong when they have these things?
You know, so many of the children that we serve are already in such a feeling like they're less than when they're going to school, right? Let's say, let me take a teenager, for example. You'll see so many of the wishes say, I want a Nike this or an Adidas that. And it's not that they're looking for that particular or a particular item. They want to belong. They want to feel that sense of community with their friends, their colleagues at school, the students. They don't want to be looked down upon. And you see that a lot through the list and through the communication with the agencies. It's and for the little ones, so often because of the situation they're in financially and their families are in, they may want a lot of things, as all kids do, but they don't necessarily get them. We only provide new items. So if a kid says, even if it's something simple like Legos, he doesn't have to share them. They're the ones they want, and they're theirs. And there's that sense of, I matter to somebody, right? The little children thinks it's Santa Claus. The older children think that, mom and dad or grandma, whoever is the guardian, pulled a miracle out of their hat. So it's important.
Now, I love that you mentioned that small children believe, Santa Claus gave this to them. And then even for the older children, they may think that, their mom and dad did it. Why is it so important to kind of also let children be kids and believe that Santa Claus thought of them, on that special day, or that their mom and dad, however it happened, they were able to get them something for Christmas?
Well, I think that's important to all of us. As I was a kid, you felt like if you wished for something and Santa brought it, or your parents gave it to you, or whatever, you feel like you belong in this larger society also. Remember, Christmas morning, everybody's opening presents, right? All over the world. For you to not have makes you feel less than human almost. You're not participating in the social norm that everybody is doing. And the fact that they're getting what they're asking for and that Santa, let's say, remembered them, as a kid, it's hope, it's joy, it's sharing, it's family. And these kids deserve that as much as any other child.
Now, I want to take a moment to discuss Project Welcome Home. I understand you briefly mentioned it previously. Can you tell us a little bit more about that initiative?
Yes, that started as a conversation with some of our domestic violence shelters that we adopted for our back to school program. And we just launched it last month. And it is an opportunity. So, projects with care cannot create, we don't do housing, we don't do long term education, we do moments, right? Because that's what we can do, and we'd like to do as many as possible. And we found out that the people leaving the domestic violence shelter and going into supportive housing, whether it's in a project or through a voucher or whatever, they don't have anything. They leave the shelter with what they came in with, which is basically the clothes on their back. So we heard the story of a mother who had 3 children, and she was moving into an apartment, which she was thrilled about, and the kids were safe, and she was safe from their abuser. But the children had to sleep on the floor in rolled up clothes because they didn't have anything else. And it re-traumatized the whole family again because she had taken them out of their beds, out of their life that they had, even though it was not not good and not safe. But as a parent, you want your child to feel protected and to feel cared for. And it just, we decided that we would create that moment of that first night when they get into their apartment. So we provide beds for every member of the family, bedding, personalized if we can. So we find out what if the little kid likes red and he likes dinosaurs or whatever, and our good neighbors who are our volunteers that we call our Santas for the holiday program. They sponsored this family and they purchased those personalized items as well as everything they need for the bathroom, for the kitchen, so they can have their first time at home where they can take a shower, give the kid a bath, um, do the dishes, cook a meal, and tuck their children into bed. And they have that they are safe and that they've got a home.
Now, what I love is that through this work, you're really thinking about what people want. And I think sometimes in, work that deals with giving back, people think, oh, you should just be grateful that you have bed sheets. But you're like, no, like if this child wants bed sheets with dinosaurs on it, they should be able to have that. And I love that it takes into account those little things that people like that kind of put a smile on their face. And I think that's something that should definitely be introduced more into this type of work. That like it's okay for people to say, yeah, I may need bed sheets, but I want this brand or not brand, but I want dinosaur bed sheets. I think that's amazing. I love to hear that's
So
what you're pushing.
it's not as specific as like saying that the bed sheets will be that, but they
Right.
give us some insight, right? So our good neighbors know that this is a child that they're going to care for.
Hmm.
And these are wonderful people in our network. And they want to do and make that kid happy and know that they're creating this home. So it's a little bit extra because it's personal, but that's what Projects with Care does. We make sure that these kids and their parents, even the last family that moved, the mother liked purple. So the sponsor got her, purple sheets and a purple bathrobe, and just so that she could feel good in her new home, also. Because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right? So
Right.
everybody wants their, children are reflecting how their parents feel about this as well. So you try to create that moment.
Definitely. Now, what role do community partnerships play in the success of your initiatives, and how do you foster these relationships?
So if we're talking community partnerships, meaning the agencies that we work with and the location that they're in, we spend time really talking to them and finding out what they need. As we were trying to introduce a new program, we've been all volunteer until last year. I became their first executive director in May of 2023. And with my colleague Brendan, our program manager, we have been trying to figure out how do we do that next program. And we really went and said, what do you need? What can we do that's not being done that is something that we can in fact handle because we're still very small. So the partnerships in that respect are very important, as are our partnerships with some of our corporate sponsors, because we're trying to put the people that want to do good and the people who need us together, with the synergy of what we do, and we're more like the facilitator, if that makes sense.
Now, with the entire organization starting back in the early 90s and with the pilot of Project Welcome Home starting in 2024, what are your goals for the future of this program?
To be honest with you, I just talked about this at our annual fundraiser in my speech. So we're doing 25% more kids than ever, right, this year. So we're doing 2,500 children for Christmas. But there's 46,000 sleeping in shelter tonight. And I look at it and say, how do I get to 5,000, to 10,000, to all of them? I think the programs that we have are solid, they're scalable, and there's a need out there. What I would like to do in my dream world would be to cover every kid in shelter.
Now, I also want to take a moment to discuss, just people who are listening to this and they feel like they want to help, they want to be good neighbors and they want to make a difference in a family's life. Where can they go to learn more information and what are some qualities they should have?
So they can always go to our website, projectswithcare.org. We have what's called our projects page, and it tells you about each of our programs and how to get involved in them, and also some special projects that we've done through the years. All you need to do to get involved is care. Some people have money, and we need that. Some people want to physically volunteer, and we need that. And some people want to advise and make introductions, and it's everything. So as long as you care about your neighbors and your community, we need you.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this initiative with our community.
Thank you very much for having me.
We have to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.